Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you guys are having a wonderful day, and today we're here with another weekly top 100 for soccer card auctions on PWCC. Hopefully you guys enjoy the video. Of course, as always, if you do, make sure to leave a like, helps the video, helps the channel, all that good stuff. And yeah, with that said, let's go ahead and get right on into it. As always, we'll start from the bottom, work our way up. So here we have a 1962 Pele, the Editora Saravan collection, and PSA 1, pop 1 of 1, 5 higher. There's a similar sticker to Pele in the 60s that has him coming out of Brazil, which I guess, I prefer visually, but also for a PSA 1, that isn't too bad at all. Then we have a 1959 Heinerle Fontaine and a PSA 6 going for 174. Pretty decent grade for Heinerle, but I guess not all too astounding, but still pretty good. Getting a pretty decent price there, 1 of 2, 1 higher. We have a Saka sticker auto from 2020 Prism. Above that, we have a 1960 Brazilian team with Pele and a 4.5. We have a Jude out of 195 and a PSA 10. I did look this one up just because we don't look up a lot of modern, but Jude, if anyone's worthy of being looked up, he at the moment certainly is. This PSA 10 goes for 198, before that 158 in July, so up a little bit from there. But ultimately, not much of a change from last year to this year, despite the upward move and performance at the moment. Still relatively in line, which, to be honest, I think it's just a product of Jude having way too many cards. 2020 and beyond is when it starts to get, pretty crazy, especially if you're a hyped prospect, because you're going to be in everything. BGS 4.5 Catalan for the white Mega Cracks for Messi, going for 204. In the ballpark of what we see. Pretty good price for what is a pretty low grade, I would say. Above that, 2022 Neuer with the sticker auto and nice patch right there. Next to it, we have a red Neymar out of 5, going for 216. Then we have a Cavani in a PSA 10 going for 216. Don't see this too often, obviously in high grade especially. Pop 1 of 3. I wouldn't imagine that they're extremely rare. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but, Panini Calciatore, not something you would imagine is going to be terribly hard to find. Of course, in high grade is pretty cool, but Cavani is sort of a name that doesn't, from what I see, even get mentioned at all, which is a shame, but it sort of is what it is, really. Above that, BGS 5, Messi going for just a small premium over the 4.5, an extra, $10 ultimately. I guess I'd pay that. 1979 Super Football Maradona from the set with many, many Maradonas in it, going for 216. Pretty decent grade. A lot of these are pretty low, so a 4 is not bad. SGC2 Beckenbauer, we'll look at the back. Should be pretty good back. Relative to what you would think for a 2, that's a nice looking 2. Goes for 222. All the 2s aligning there. We have a 1964 Sicker Verlag Pele and a SGC3 going for 222 as well. We also have a 1922 team photo. Notably, Lily Parr apparently is the one we're looking for here. Couldn't pick him out of a lineup. I am not that knowledgeable on ball, at least as of yet. So we'll keep moving. Fun to see, team stickers outselling, Pele team stuff from his early career. Obviously notable. Robert Lewandowski PSA 6 goes for 228. Feels like a decent sale. Typically you see, 8s, 9s doing in the 500 to 1,000 range, somewhere in there. So a 6 for 228, not bad. Then we have a BVG 6.5 for the Campione dello Sport Pele, going for a little over 200 as well. Pretty nice looking photo, I think, but generally the set, you can still find a decent amount of them out there. We've been seeing some go on PWCC. Pele's only doing this much, of course, lower for most others, but I think we saw a pack of this go recently, which sort of got me into looking at that set a bit more and just noticing it whenever it comes up. Here we have a 2022 Jude auto. Again, just sort of the problem with, I guess it could be a problem, it could be a great thing. It really depends on what you're on. If you're an investor looking for, Jude prices to go up, there's new fun, cool cards every single year, so that's going to be what you're battling here, right? And here we have an out of something, but apparently it's just gold lava, and you got to do your own math on the pack odds, which I'm not going to do. So best of luck on that. 240 for a sticker auto. Again, still feels strong. We'll see. I'm sure we'll see sticker autos later, but just generally paying hundreds of dollars for a rookie sticker auto from, a random year is pretty high, at least from, my perspective. 2017 Topps UEFA Kylian Mbappe. This is a really fun looking sticker, one that honestly gets no love. I did look it up and I was surprised to see that it's actually up a little bit. So from March, 174, 157, this is 240. That's a pretty decent boost of, almost 50%. Now before that, it actually hasn't gone, down massively. If we look all the way back to what, I guess it sort of drops here in March and February of last year. But I mean, even before that, like 350 in October of 2021, and now 250, which obviously is low. But for someone like Mbappe, who hasn't really, lit the world on fire. The 2022 World Cup was very good from his perspective, but you don't see anyone talking about that in the hobby. No one's like, "Oh, what a championship game by Mbappe." I'm sure he lost, but that should be a narrative. No one really cares. It's all messy narrative right now, and that's still holding up pretty good for, again, a sticker no one really talks about. A player that didn't get the move everyone's hoping for, that hasn't been putting up the numbers, that won't really be all that involved in trophies, and so that feels pretty good to me. Above that, we have a Del Piero PSA 8 going for 240. Feels pretty strong. I did not look this one up, but I've seen these before. I'm pretty sure we saw the PSA 9 do a really big number, which I'm guessing is why this 8 also does, a pretty big number. But the problem always is if a 10 comes out, the 10's not going to do a big number comparatively to the 9. It's just going to basically bump down the 9, which is then going to bump down the 8s. And so this is always something you have to be cognizant of. But Pop 1 to 14, just one graded higher, at least for the moment. Wouldn't appear to be all that easy to gem, of course. So is what it is. PSA 2, Beckenbauer. Want to look at the back on this one. This back, a little bit worse, but the front also pretty good. Colors are great. Also decent centering. And goes for 240. Just a little bit of a premium over the SGC 2, but not much. BGS 5.5 of the white Mega Cracks. A lot of mid-grades of these selling this week. Decent prices for all of them. Above that, a 4.5 of the green version, doing about the same, which is generally what I just tend to believe at this point, that you can about get the green for the same price as the white, but you'll get a grade lower. And that's generally the case. Holds true there. The blue's also really sort of, bumped up. We'll see that later, but it's pretty clear at this point it's blue, green, white in terms of what people prefer from this set. And generally, I'd agree. I think the blue looks really good. I also don't mind the white, but it's just easier to get in higher grade, which I think is why it scales differently. Here we have the 2019-2020 Erling Haaland WCCF card. Pretty fun looking card. Is Pop 1 of 50. And goes for 270. Feels a little strong. I don't know. Maybe Haaland collectors feel like this is weak. To me, it's sort of an ancillary card that I do like, but I don't think people are going to pay up for. We see WCCF of, like Kareem Benzema. That's a true rookie. No one really cares, right? So, not sure how I feel. 2006 PSA 10 Messi going here for 264. Very, very low, I guess. At one point in time, this sort of, along with the same lines as the candy sticker of Ibra, Ronaldo, and Zlatan, this sort of followed suit and was really, really expensive, which is why it's a Pop 1 at 40. People wouldn't be submitting this in bulk now. Maybe, but at least not as much as they were at one point, which is why it's that high pop. Goes down to 264. I totally understand. It's a terrible sticker. You get like one little Messi over here, and I don't even know, is there anyone all that relevant on the rest of this? There's some players that I know, but no one that I would actively hunt. So, yeah. 1979 Crack Maradona Super Football. CSG 3 goes for 264. Always love the look of this one. Sort of a fun caricature. And, nice little excited ball there. I'd be happy to be kicked by Maradona as well. 1963 Zoff and a PSA 3 miscut. Going for, 264. This one we've actually seen sell already in the series once, and that was back here on PWCC Weekly for $552. This is the same one, I do believe, goes for about half the price, so a nice little discount there. Before that, it also sold for $566, so half the price from there. And ultimately, not something you see all too much. There is a white border one, as you can see right here as well, so keep an eye out for that if you're interested. But yeah, not a Zoff you're going to see all too often. Next to that, Garincha PSA 1 for 264 from the 1960 Tupanamba. Kind of a scary picture of Garincha. I feel like I'm being chased down. But yeah, really, I guess, fun looking one as well. I do like the Tupanamba set. From this, you kind of get a really good looking Pele, and the caricatures again are nice. A couple good ones in this row. Above that, two BGS 4s going for, okay. Maybe that's an eye appeal thing. Maybe people are really digging into the weeds. I'm not sure why that. I'm not sure of that. I don't get that. Maybe people just don't trust grading. But yeah, interesting to say the least. They are newer certs, so maybe that's a factor as well. That's 15 million certs, so, or I guess 16. So yeah, maybe that's why. Next to that, we have a Xavi PSA 6 football going for 276. Didn't look this one up, but seems like a relatively affordable price, at least for what these have gone for in the past. Usually you'll find them I feel like in better grade, I feel like I see a lot of 7s and 8s, so 6 isn't, you know, the highest of end for this card, but it's still a really nice looking one. I think it's one of the best looking rookies from the 90s, maybe the best, in my opinion. I think the colors are pretty unmatched. I'm a little biased. I do own this, so, you know, I guess that has something going for it, but I own a lot of cards that I also don't think are the best looking, so you would think it evens out. Above that, 2018 Futera Kylian Mbappe going for 288. Then we have a Paolo Maldini PSA 8 going for 288 as well. We look these up quite often, so I'm just going to stay away. They've been on the same sort of trajectory for a while now. 1968 Pele Valita back going for 288. Pop 105, 3 higher. I really do like the yellow. Matches Pele, and I guess matches the Paolo Maldini very well. Above that, we have a BGS 6 Catalan Messi. We also have a 1970 Breitner rookie going for 300 and a PSA 6, pop 104, none higher, at least for the time being again. We have a Rivera 1962. Really like the look of this one. It's not one that you see all too often. I guess that would be why. Pop 101, just one graded higher. Really like the look of that. That is quite a beauty. Blank back, which I guess you wouldn't prefer, but still a really, really nice looking one at that. In this row, we'll just talk about the Cruyffstons. That's all I can really, manage at this point. Right here, PSA 4, this goes for 360. I actually did find the last sale of the same item in my scrubbing of the searches. So back here, June 25th, 2021, it sold for $874. This was $193 as the final 3 certs, and this is $193 as well. So same one, sells for a hefty discount, so congrats to the buyer. Not so much the seller, obviously, you do what you gotta do, but looks pretty good. I mean, for a 4, that looks pretty well centered. I didn't, go in and zoom in on this, but the corners look decent. It all looks pretty good. So I guess if you're buying on eye appeal especially, that's a quality 4 right there. Above that, we have a 1970 pack from the, first World Cup Panini, and that goes for $372 and a PSA 8. I mean, feels pretty low, to be honest with you. I think packs in general for soccer are just low because people don't have, some nostalgic chase for it, whether that be for now or even far into the future. I just don't think that people, sort of get the same experience. Like for me, I always imagine like going back and opening, early Pokemon packs or Yu-Gi-Oh packs or something like that. And, that would be really fun for me because I did that before. And so it'd sort of be this rush. This type of stuff, unless you were around collecting, the Panini World Cup in 1970, then maybe you did. But for most people that are collecting soccer, you probably didn't. And so this is more of just, something that you're buying based on history and, what you feel about it now, not what you felt about it at the time. So it takes on a life of its own. But yeah, I mean, $370 for a pack like that doesn't seem too bad. I also don't know how much you can see in here. I'm sure you can see the top card and probably the back one, so you'd presume there's not good people on either side of that, which is also something you have to take into account. Not sure if that's the case, but just generally that's how I approach buying of packs. Next to that, we have a 1965 Sport Magazine hand-cut Beckenbauer going for $372. I want to take a look at the back, and it sort of just looks almost like a newspaper, I guess, and maybe that's what it is. I'm not all too familiar, if I am being honest, but given what I see on the back, it's not something that I would say is generally the standard for trading cards. So next to that, an Erling Haaland Topps Bundesliga purple. I've never really seen this. Pop 105, I guess that's why. So low number, but not all that notable. On the other end of the spectrum, this card we see almost every week goes for $384. Next to that, we have a Neeskens PSA 9 Vanderhoot 1970 going for $384. Nice rookie there. PSA 1 Pele team photo for $384. Above that, we have a 1947 panel of the Torino team going for $384 in a PSA 4. They have a foil fractor Griezmann going for $420, a Alex Morgan going for $444. Above that, we have a Panini Calciatore Pele and a PSA 6 doing $444. Doesn't feel, insanely strong. Mid-career Pele, really nice looking Panini one in pretty decent grade going for a reasonable number. Then we have 2 dupes going right next to each other, and this kind of shows, I guess, the power of the PWCC eye appeal. The PSA 3 goes for the same price as with PSA 3.5 because of the eye appeal designation. Personally, I mean, yeah, when you look at them, they look pretty similar. The back on that one looks pretty good. I'm guessing that's just glare down there at the bottom left, not evidence of being stuck. And yeah, I mean, the PSA 3.5 looks pretty good as well. distinguish the difference between the two if you can. I dare you to do just that. And yeah, I guess, well, whenever we go and look at the price, these go for $444. The one before this in a PSA 1 with an eye appeal did $250. So I'd much rather be the buyer of a 3.5 or something rather than a 1. Obviously, you're getting a $200 discount, but I think the step up's probably worth it. PSA 5, 1,000. PSA 3 back here, 700. So a little low, but I mean, relative to most of the sales, seems to be within the ballpark of what you'd expect. Here we have a Kylian Mbappe Gold Refractor from the 2021-2022 set. Keep this in mind because there will be a similar card later. So we have a Megan Rapinoe. Here we have the aforementioned from earlier, the Cristiano Ronaldo Beckham Ibra SGC 10 goes for almost $450. I guess a little higher than $450. Yeah, you know, we've told the story about the sticker before. I'll just keep scrolling. A Di Stefano PSA 7, $468. This is actually pretty low relative to what the Bruguera Di Stefanos do, but this is also pretty recently graded, which is, you know, part of the... I guess, the landscape of this card in particular. There's a decent amount of them that are still getting graded, it appears, and, you know, in good grades sometimes as well. For whatever reason, people, you know, speculate, but no matter the case, this does a lower number, but I guess not, you know, some disastrous number. Next to that, we have an Orsi 1931 going for $492. Then we have a BGS 8 Messi going for $516. Decent premium over the 4s and 5s, but not anything crazy. It's just probably a doubling in price from most of what we saw earlier. Goes for basically the same exact price as the green version. Personally, I'd prefer the green if you're going to give me both of them for near the same price. I think the green makes sense. The green also in Campio seems to be really hard to grade for some reason. Generally, you know, the more color you have on the card, the harder it's going to be to grade. So it does have, you know, some green and, you know, a little edge, grayish area. So you have that going for it. We have a Garrincha 1962 Lampo Calcio. This was a fun one. I think I looked it up. I did indeed. So this goes for $552. The last one, I guess raw, went for $275. Before that, though, $200 for a PSA 5 and $100 for a PSA 2. So $550 for a PSA 6. Quite the jump up. In my opinion, you know, one of the best looking 1960s stickers in general. I love the set. Pele is sort of the main attraction. Honestly, Pele's in like a PSA 4 go for near this price, so I'd probably rather be the buyer of a Pele than a Garrincha, but at the same time, you know, Garrincha, I'd like to have both, I guess would be the way I'd put it. Next to that, we have a Topps Chrome Erling Haaland going for $560. We saw one of these, I think it was last week or the week before, go for like $900 or something, so whatever happened there, that is gone as we would have expected. Didn't look this card up. 2006 UK Traditions, that has its whole story. If you don't know, just stay away from the card, and that's, you know, the way I'd put it. 1965 Franz Beckenbauer here. This is an auto of his rookie authentic going for $564. Don't know if I looked at this one. I did not, so we will glance by it. But there were autographs of the same card going for, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 last year. Now it's dropping a good bit in price. He does sign a good bit, and he still does to this day. So that is presumably why they keep dropping. At some point in time, though, I do feel like it's a good buy in the sense that you don't get a lot of like iconic soccer rookies signed. You just can't. I mean, most of them, you know, there's a lot of people that are dead. There's a lot of people that, you know, just don't have access to a lot of rookies and you can't get them to sign. I mean, there's just so many hurdles that having something like this is really cool. And so it is something at one point in time I will eye. I feel like, you know, the buyer of this probably got a good deal. But again, when someone's still signing and this is a relatively plentiful card, especially in PSA 1, you know, you're gonna have more and more be signed. So that's just the way it is. I do think it's great though. 2022 Panini National Insert Gold Messi going for $588 because it's out of 10. Above that, another Messi from Inception going for $600, pop 1 of 24. People love the Inception set, of course. Here we have a 1920s Lorani. I think this is from the same set as the Miazza. Could be wrong, but we'll just say it is and, you know, explain away the price as that. Obviously, it must be some sort of key player as well, though, but I don't have much knowledge of pre-war, especially Italy, so I will just keep moving. 2019 Erling Haaland Topps Sapphire. I mean, 690, a little bit lower actually. We've seen some of these go for 700 to 800, so I think this is one of the first times we've seen it in the 600 range. I could be wrong, but that's on the lower end of what we typically see. Here, this is what I was talking about earlier. The BGS 8 of the blue goes for a good premium. I'm not going to scroll back, but the other ones were like 530, 540. This one does almost 700. So people showing with their cash that they do prefer the blue, and by a good margin. The white and the green are, almost intermixed, and this one stands head and shoulders above. I guess right above it, we do have one for 720, so maybe that's why there was just a couple running, and, that does happen a lot, to be honest. Pele 1970 PSA 6 here. We have a multi-language that went for 810, and here you have the green going for 720, so it's around what you'd expect. There was a Panini Mexico auction, though, that went for 294 on eBay. Okay, I guess that's OC, that makes sense. All right, so in the range of what you'd expect a Pele in decent grade to go for. There are different intricacies in terms of where things grade depending on the back, and sort of a different bell curve depending on which one you're talking about, so do keep that in mind. It's not one-to-one comparisons from one back to another. Above that, we have a 2022 National Treasures World Cup Platinum patch, 1 of 1 for Robert Lewandowski. We have a Xavi Simons 1 of 1, a first edition non-rookie, I believe. I don't see a rookie anywhere on that, but that does $750, which feels like a pretty good price. Duncan Edwards 1954 PSA 9 goes for $750. Feel like we've seen one of these go for near the same price and a pretty high grade, so I'm not sure if that got rerun, but if I was someone that cared more about Duncan Edwards and, the results of his, I would definitely give that a peek, because that's interesting. Above that, BGS 9 of Kylian Mbappe going for basically the same price I've been seeing PSA 9 goes for, so that's not a bad price. BGS typically gets quite the discount, especially in this sort of scenario. I understand a 9 is a 9 for a reason, but when you're a 9 centering, a 9 corner, a 9 surface, well, that's just telling me there's 3 problems with this card. Minor problems, and I feel like if I send it to PSA, best case scenario, you're getting a 9. So for me, I'm a little weary. Also, BGS stickers in general, also very weary. This is graded pre fakes being a real thing, though, so maybe that could, sort of ease some fears for some. Next to that, we have alternatively the Topps Chrome Refractor Kylian Mbappe going for $870 in a what is that, Min Gem. Next to that, a PSA 8 Lionel Messi Monday Chromo going for $870. I did look this one up out of curiosity, so last one goes for $910, a little bit down from that, but there was also a fixed price offer for $900 about a couple weeks ago. So usually whenever there's a fixed price item that sells and the next 2 auctions go near or above that, I think that's a generally good sign for that player. Here we have an 8.5 of the foil going for $900. Not an astounding price. Pretty hard to get in higher grade, not as hard as PWCC is saying there, but pretty hard to get, so I can see why it does a good number. 2018 Cristiano Ronaldo signature, so this is a Prism World Cup auto. Did look this one up just because I was interested. People talk about Ronaldo going down, and generally speaking, it is true. I've seen Ronaldo's stuff dip, but this one, for some reason, not the case. This one does $900. Last one we can see did $930 in June. $760 in June as well. $770, $800. We go all the way back to, World Cup last year, $700. I mean, really not that crazy, which I would have thought they would have dropped more, but surprise, surprise, a sticker auto of Ronaldo stays at a pretty decent price. Also, don't really love the auto for that. I see a lot of Ronaldo autos that are much more legible and much better looking, but that one's pretty rough for some reason. Honestly, not a crazy price for, what is such a high grade and such a great player in pre-war, but generally, again, UK keeps their stuff in good condition, and it's a lot more based on the rarity of the set rather than grading scarcity, which I do like that about, pre-war. They sort of have that down a bit better than I would say we do in modern. I say we, I don't buy a ton of modern outside of US players, but I'm younger, so I include myself in the group. 2022, here we have a dual auto with Benzema and Vinny out of 5 going for $1,100. Pretty decent price for 2 sticker autos if you ask me, but Real Madrid fans rejoice, so that is a good one for you. We have a CSG Holland 10 going for $1,100. Feels like a pretty decent price from what I remember. Like PSA 10s were doing between $1,000 and $1,500, so that makes me feel like this is a decent price, especially CSG doesn't really have the branding in sports like it might in other realms, so I think that's big. This is not big, so this is a PSA 10. To be fair, it is early cert, so you gotta take that for what it is. But a PSA 10 Iniesta, so we'll look at this. This does $1,100. Last one hasn't sold in a year in 2 months, year and 3 months, and somehow it drops, almost 75%. Obviously, a lot of that has to do with the fact that the PSA 9s still sell, and you can see the trend on the 9s, so it's going to stay relatively the same. Also, a big point here is that pre-modern, along with vintage soccer, really boomed after the market boomed. It was sort of a delay boom because everyone was sort of going backwards and trying to find stuff, and so, you know, this stuff peaked really high and then dropped pretty well. You know, to be fair, I still think it's an amazing card. I mean, Pop 1 of 18, that's not an easy get, and, you know, if you're someone that owns a nice grade Messi, at least in my mind, you would also want to own a nice grade Iniesta and Xavi. Now, do you want to own a 10? I don't know, but, you know, I could see why they're desirable, surely. Above that, we have a 2018 Mbappe green. I looked this one up, actually, we have a blue Mbappe, green Benzema. I looked up the blue Mbappe, not the green Benzema, because this isn't going to help us as much. Both do about the same price. I'd be interested in what people would want here. You know, me personally, I'd probably just go Mbappe because I think it's close enough to rookie year that you can sort of have that narrative going for it. I also really like the blue. And Benzema's sort of, he's as high as he's ever really been in the hobby, at least, you know, the last couple years, I'm saying, relative to his entire career. He's sort of at a nice point where I feel like people might pay more for him than an Mbappe. Looking back on prices, though, this is in the ballpark of what you could expect. So PSA 8 does 1,200, 9 did 17, 8 does 12. What is that? 9 does 17. You know, 8 does 1,000. So in the ballpark, actually up a little bit from that 1,000 best offer. The one thing that bothers me about treble, though, if we go back all the way in price history, so you see these $1,000 sales, $1,000 sales. There was a time where soccer was booming and no one cared. All the way down here at the bottom, $61 in December 2020. Now, if you know anything about December 2020, that's like 3 months away from the peak of soccer, right? And that's $61. Now they're selling for, you know, 500, 1,000, all that stuff. And I know why. Like, I think most of us know why, right? You know, Andre sort of had the video that talked about treble that really boomed treble. Now, just because you make a video doesn't mean that the set's going to stay relevant, though. It very easily could have just fallen off afterwards. But I think Andre has enough of, you know, a community, enough people that watch his videos and care about his takes that, you know, they'll stick around and they'll collect a set, especially if they like it and it makes sense to them. So I think a lot of people are collecting it. But the problem I also see is I feel like there are other people or, you know, other individuals, other collectors that also very heavily pump the set. And so I feel like the combination of all that, you got the pumpers, you got the, you know, organic collectors, you got kind of everything going together where right now, you know, I see a lot of people just generally that are collectors that are buying basically random trebles, like just random treble colors because, you know, it's a new desirable set, right? And whenever people are doing that, I just immediately become suspicious because I just don't know how long that stays the case. I don't know if a lot of people in soccer, and I don't think they have, but I don't think a lot of people have truly collected a set, right? To put together a set like this takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it just takes some true passion and desire that I don't feel like people just hopping into something randomly have. That's not to say that treble won't do well. I just need it to do, you know, well over a long span of time and need to see that it's desirable, right? I don't feel a rush into it. But that's not to say that I don't like treble or that it can't be a good set. You know, it's just to say that typically I like some sort of explainable price history. And when something goes up 20x, I just feel a lot less comfortable. And I think that makes sense. Next up, we have BVG Pele here in an 8 grade going for $1,290. Obviously a discount because BVG, you know, people seem to at least generally say that it's a grade or two lower than what you'd expect in PSA. You know, the color doesn't look great to me. It does seem pretty off-white, but still, in decent grade, goes for $1,300, decent price as well. But yeah, not the true multiplier you would expect, I guess. Above that, we have a Panini Calciatore Pele with a Velita back and a PSA 5 going for $1,290. Pretty sure we saw a 6 of this go for, you know, a really high amount recently, but this has the eye appeal sticker, so close to a 6, I guess you could say, and does a much lower number. Here we have a Messi sticker auto going for $1440 out of 25, a Ruby Topps Museum. Next to that, PSA 1 Maradona Football. This is his Pog rookie. And yeah, whenever we look at this, so basically down a little bit, I would say. Last PSA 1 on fixed price does $18.77. To be fair, this one doesn't, I guess, look the best, but actually I feel like it looks pretty decent. The registration on his face isn't great, but generally for a 1, I feel like that's a pretty good look. If we go back further though, you'll see a 1.5 that did 2,500. You'll see a 1.5 that did 2.5. So, you know, in the ballpark of what you'd expect, maybe a little low, but generally these have held up really well in comparison to other Maradonas, and part of that's probably the true rookie aspect going for it. Also looks really good, at least in my opinion. Keeping it in the Maradona family, we have a Calciatore PSA 7, so looking at that, actually, one of the few graphs we have on Card Ladder, love to see it, but yeah, over the last year, down 38%, but really it's just this sale, so I don't know, if you want to compare, say, these sales to this sale, it's right in line. If you want to compare this sale to this sale, it's right in line. Generally, the graph looks pretty healthy, but, the trend would say otherwise, at least from that one sale to the other, so, consider that how you will. Next to that, with the BGS 5.5 Messi Mega Cracks going for 2.1 thousand. About what you'd expect. Usually low grades in like the 1 to 4 range, or in the 1,000 to 2,000 range. Above that, usually 2 to 3,000. Then you sort of scale up. So it makes sense to me. Pretty good eye appeal for a 5.5, at least from the front here. Next to that, we have Eric Cantona PSA 9, a pretty rare sticker here from France Football, 85-86. So looking at that, this one goes for 3,200. Before that, this same exact one went for 8,900 on best offer back from the PWCC vault near the peak. So 9,000, sold for 3,000. Quite the hit, but if you are a collector looking to get in, that is as fun a time as ever. There was one that sold in April for 3,800. It's only a little down from there. But yeah, I mean, this is one of those stickers where I think you have to wait and find the buyer. You cannot just be selling this and expect to get, full market value at a weekly PWCC auction. But of course, if you need the money, or if you want the money, you do what you got to do and you move on. So to each their own. It is what it is. 2016 Mbappe in a PSA 10 going for 4,500. Do you think I looked this one up? Yeah. So actually, okay. Yeah, 4,500. That's up from the last couple of sales. 42, 42, 43. Nothing all too crazy. There are some really just random golden sales here. This one says 6,200. I notice that a lot with golden, where they have just really high arbitrary sales for no reason. Don't know why that is. I can understand, like, back in the day when there was hype, when the market was as frothy as ever, people were like, oh, golden has higher end buyers that might not know what they're doing. But like at this point, you probably know what you're doing. I don't know why you'd be spending 50% more on golden. But yeah, so 6,000 in the ballpark at 4.5. That's definitely where you'd expect it to be. And again, pretty good for Mbappe. Hasn't really been doing all that much, to be honest, and is still just keeping up just fine with the market. So next up, we have a 1920s Helvetia Sport Regalo. This is a Balanceri. There was a lot of chatter in the Vintage Discord. If you want to check out the Discords down below in the description, highly recommend. A lot of fun talking in there with people. I don't know much about this, but Balanceri, decent player. But Balanceri, notable player for pre-war Italy, and something that people obviously wanted to chase after. The weird part about this was that a lot of the bidding was done early, and there was also a Ferrari in the same set. That's obviously, not soccer, but it is relevant to the card collecting world, and that one apparently did like 30K or something crazy. So basically, if my story is correct, like, these just did an absolute insane number that a lot of people didn't expect. But nothing out of the realm of possibility. There were other people in the Discord that confirmed that, they bid this on the way up. So, we'll see if it gets rerun or not. But very interesting and something new to add to the memory bank for me. Haven't seen this before, especially on PWCC. So, very interesting to note there. Also, don't know if I've seen this, Pop 1 of 2, PSA 10. Whenever I saw it initially, I'm like, that must be a really high price to pay for this type of a card. But at the same time, it's a Pop 1 of 2, and it actually looks really good. I didn't even notice this the first time. But you have the blue on the bottom with Messi, and then you have the red on the top with Ronaldo. So honestly, typically all of the weird color, the red, white, blue, the gold, black wave, the yada yada, I don't care for them. But this one actually looks really good, and I think that's maybe why it does the price it does, along with the rarity, especially in high grade. 5K for the matchups. In a world where people, again, say that Messi's the only GOAT, no one cares about Ronaldo. For some reason, people are paying a lot for the both of them. I don't know why. Maybe they're just silly, but gosh, that is a high number. And notably here, we have a lot of like big sales. We haven't been seeing a lot of over 1 to 5K lately, and I mean there are quite a few. And that brings us into the top 3. So this top 3 a little different. I don't think we've ever had a quad auto to lead the way, but here we are. PSA 10 Lionel Messi in the 62, I believe. Yeah, the 62. that is a Campione version. If we look basically over the last year, up 8%. This sale was actually really good, went from 4,300 to 5,400. But that is, I guess, following the MLS bump. So this is something people don't talk about a lot too. I feel like the Messi craze lately has really been driven by his move to MLS. It's not really even the World Cup. A lot of people like to say basically it's the World Cup that put him over the top, and that's why this happened. I don't think so. I think it's just the move to the US. I think it's a lot of US people getting hyped about it, and I think it's a lot of people in the hobby that are sort of investors that are speculating now that he's in America, people will care, right? And I think that's basically where we're at. And as you can see, I mean, he won the World Cup here, and it dropped from 6,200 to 3,700 at one point in the span of 3 months. Still dropped massively, and levels out after the World Cup. Then he moves to MLS, and it's right back to where he was during the World Cup. But I'm just saying that I don't know. I think a lot of people are more so buying Messi right now because of sort of the flipper craze, and that is speculation on my part. There's no way to say for certain that that's the case. But a lot of what I notice with Messi stuff, at least especially in the Soccer Study Discord, again, I love the Discords. I'll point them out down below. And, I'll state my takes on them. A lot of the Messi people that I notice are people that seem to be new to the hobby. And a lot of them also have like crypto profile pics. That is just a stereotype that is in my head forever. If you have a crypto profile pic in cards, I take your opinion less seriously. I truly do. I don't want to offend those people. But I think the spaces are so wildly different that if you want from one to the other, and you think you know what's going on, I think you're so lost beyond belief. That might not be a common take. I know there's got to be people with NFT profile pics watching this. Just know it's not a personal thing. I think you're a fine individual. I don't think there's anything morally wrong with you. I just am saying that Messi's prices have gone up a lot since he entered America. Now, why is that, right? Why is it? What's the answer? And most people would say, well, it's because he won a World Cup. Well, we just looked at the graph, right? It's not because he won a World Cup. It went down a lot since he won the World Cup. It's gone up since he entered the U.S. All right, now, he entered the U.S. Is it U.S. people that are now suddenly buying Messi for $4,000 to $5,000 because they just found out about him? No. So it's really just the narrative around Messi, right? It's really just as simple as that. It's that people can be excited right now, and so since they can be excited, they will be excited, and so since people will be excited, prices will go up, and how long will that last? I do not know. Obviously, I think Messi's a GOAT, but I think what's going on with Messi right now isn't sustainable, really. Yeah, he's in America. Yeah, that's great. But Messi has not captured America the way you would probably want him to, the way a lot of people would probably want him to. He hasn't captured the zeitgeist of America sports media. And, maybe over time that happens, maybe with the Copa and the World Cup that builds, right? And if it does, by all means, I'm as happy as a clam. I own a lot of Messis. I own a lot of other cards. If Messis go up, my Messi cards go up. If Messi cards go up, my other cards have more room to grow. It's great. I love it. I'm as happy as the next guy. But at the same time, I do question. I think it's worthy of discussion. Would love to hear your thoughts down below, good or bad. Maybe you hate my profile pictures because they're stupid too. I don't know. Nonetheless, 2021, 2022 Topps Chrome Gold Refractor Kylian Mbappe, and when we talk about hype that just went entirely sideways, this is quite the card, right? So, for those that are unaware, this came from a set where you basically were guaranteed autos of all the good players. Now, you could miss on some, but basically you're guaranteed them. And yeah, that set was going for anywhere from 10 to 20K at the time. And this is sort of like the pull of all pulls from the set, right? If you open this and got an out of 10 Kylian Mbappe, this was great because this was his first on-card auto. And so at the time, the boxes are 10 to 20K. What is this worth? Well, luckily we have a sale. I went back at sales history and we didn't have one, I didn't think, but all the way at the bottom, right down here with no picture, $30,000 for an out of 10 auto. PSA 8 goes for 5.5. Like, oh my word. And that's not, I guess it's a PSA 8, but this black one out of 20 went for $4,500. I'd so much rather have the gold, and, they're very much near the same price, which in my mind means that, this type of stuff's still dropping, right? And God, that 30K to 5K is just so insane. But that's, again, the power of narratives, especially on newer guys, especially on newer product, especially on, super high-end stuff. Goodness, someone just absolutely taking a bath. Now, I don't know if this is the same card. I have no clue, to be honest. Maybe this person just bought the team set at, 10K. opened this, sold everything, maybe made his money back, maybe he's happy. I don't know. To me, that seems terrible, though, and is definitely a warning going forward on just autos in general. Autos can be replicated for the most part. If they can be replicated and they sell for lots of money, they will be replicated, and it's just hard. Which then leads us to the one of one, the holy grail of all grails. A Pele squiggly auto, a Ronaldo off sticker, an Erling Haaland trying to spell his initials, along with an actual Messi auto. At least there's that. If this would have had the, I guess, the coat hanger Messi signature, this would have just been the the absolute collection of some of the weirdest autos of the GOATs. This is part of why I hate autos, especially newer autos. Like, the modern day players are so bad with autos. Like Pele, this man signed more than any man ever should. And somehow, even in his later years, I mean, what is this? 2022. The year he died. I mean, this auto looks better than Erling Haaland's. Like, props to him, He put in that effort throughout his entire career. Erling Haaland doesn't even know how to spell his name. Like, you gotta be kidding me. Ronaldo, again, pretty good auto, but very off sticker, so problematic. And Messi's actually, pretty good. I like the L and the Leo. I don't know as much about whatever's up here. I don't like that in his autos. It's typically pretty ugly. But yeah, big price because of big players and big autos. But again, not a card I would ever want to touch. Leaf will make, one of these every year they can until the end of time. I guess to be fair, actually, Pele, they probably don't have a lot of sticker autos, but if they do, every single one will be dedicated towards a quad one of one. You can guarantee that. So, yeah, really fun stuff. Really good week, actually. The lowest prices were pretty high, again, almost up to 200. We were seeing a time there for a bit where it was closer to 100, so pretty big week in terms of total auctions, and even on the high end, fun stuff. So I enjoyed it. Hopefully you did too. And yeah, would love to hear your thoughts down below in a comment as well. What you thought, so high, low, what I was mean to that I shouldn't have been mean to, or nice to that I shouldn't have been nice to, or just any info that I was missing. Would love to hear it. And yeah, with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.